"I don't know why she's crying," my daughter-in-law's mother muttered, loud enough for half the church to hear. Daniel left everything to Rachel, the old bats getting nothing. Rachel dabbed her bone-dry eyes with a silk handkerchief, then smirked, as if this was all some play she'd finally won. My knees nearly buckled. The rose I held dropped, not on the coffin like I intended, but onto the church floor. It rolled under a pew as if trying to escape the moment. I wanted to follow it, but I stood there, frozen, not from grief anymore, from something colder. Recognition. I should have seen it coming. Rachel never once comforted me. Not a single glance, no hug, no shared story about Daniel, her husband of 7 years, and the father of her children. Just that smug, composed face, like she'd just closed a deal. And now her mother. Announcing my erasure like it was casual gossip, I sat down quietly, folding my hands in my lap, while inside, my world came unglued. Daniel was my only son, my anchor, my last real family, and they were treating his funeral like a closing ceremony to my existence. The woman next to me, someone from Daniel's office maybe, put a hand on my arm. "You okay?" she whispered. I nodded. I was not okay. Rachel walked up to the pulpit, crocodile tears finally activated. Daniel was my heart, my partner, my soulmate. She sniffed delicately. And now, as I raise our children alone, I just hope he knows how much he meant to us. Liar. I remembered her standing in my kitchen just 4 months ago, pointing her finger at Daniel while I sat right there. "You're wasting time babying your mother," she spat. "She's not your responsibility. She's just dead weight." Daniel had said nothing. He just stared down at his shoes, like he always did when Rachel turned on me. I thought it was stress. I thought he was stuck between his wife and his mother. But now I know better. Now I know what losing feels like when it's delivered with a smile. I wanted to scream, to stand up and shout, "He was my son, my son." But I didn't. I stayed seated, silent, watching the woman who destroyed my family take a victory lap. And then, like a whisper from the grave, I remembered something. Daniel's voice, low and trembling from a conversation 6 months ago. "If anything happens to me, trust Mr. Green. I left something behind." My heart began to thud. I wasn't done here. Not yet. I kept replaying that memory, the last time Daniel came to me alone. It was pouring that day, a rare thunderstorm. I remember because he showed up soaking wet, no umbrella, no warning, just stood on my porch like a man with nowhere else to go. I hadn't seen him without Rachel in over a year. He hugged me tight, tighter than usual, and said nothing for a full minute. He just stood there, holding me like he was afraid I might disappear. He looked different that day, hollowed out, tired in a way I recognized but didn't know how to ask about. I made tea. He didn't touch it, just sat there, glancing at the door like he wasn't sure he had the right to be there. Then he said it, quietly, looking down into his hands. "If anything happens to me, trust Mr. Green. I left something behind." I remember blinking. "What do you mean, sweetheart?" He didn't explain, just shook his head and said, "Just remember that, okay?" At the time, I thought it was the storm talking, or maybe stress. He looked like a man unraveling. I didn't press. But now, sitting here, after Rachel's smirk, after her mother's venom, his words echoed loud and clear. Trust Mr. Green. He was Daniel's lawyer, a quiet man, always polite. I hadn't seen him in years, not since the home purchase Rachel insisted on, the one she said I didn't need to be involved in. But now Daniel's message made sense. He knew something. He knew what she was doing to me. Maybe not all of it. Maybe not the daily humiliations, the lies, the coldness, but he wasn't blind. He wasn't stupid. He saw enough, and more than that, he acted. Daniel had always looked away when Rachel said something cruel. That part was true. He didn't defend me, didn't correct her in public. And I thought, God help me, I thought, it was because he didn't care. But now I saw it clearly. It wasn't weakness. It was fear. He was trapped. That day on my porch, he wasn't visiting his mother. He was leaving a message, a lifeline. He knew what kind of woman Rachel was, and he knew what she was capable of. He left something, and Mr. Green would know what it was. Rachel thought she'd buried Daniel with all his truths. But I knew better now. She didn't bury him. She exposed herself. And I wasn't going to stay silent anymore. Mr. Green sat 3 rows ahead of me, still and quiet, holding a manila envelope in his lap like it weighed 100 pounds. Rachel hadn't noticed him. Too busy holding court. After the priest finished speaking, she floated from pew to pew, dabbing her fake tears, letting people console her like she was the only person who'd ever lost someone. "I don't know how she's holding it together," one woman whispered. "She's so strong," said another. I nearly laughed. Rachel wasn't strong. She was triumphant. And her relatives, vultures in designer shoes, weren't grieving. They were circling, already talking about what she'll do with the house and when the transfer clears. I sat in the corner like a ghost, the grieving mother no one spoke to. They'd taken over everything, the flowers, the casket, the seating chart. Rachel had planned the service like it was a wedding. She'd even picked the music. Nothing Daniel liked. Nothing from his childhood. Just cold, empty piano arrangements and one of those inspirational readings about letting go. Letting go. I'd been shoved out. Rachel made sure I didn't speak, didn't stand, didn't read a word. I was told I might be too emotional. And still, Mr. Green waited. I watched the envelope in his hands. Could it be real? I kept hearing Daniel's voice. I left something behind. This wasn't a hunch. It wasn't wishful thinking. Daniel had planned this. Rachel thought today would be her coronation. But I knew better. She might have worn black, but she came dressed for a victory, and she was about to find out that Daniel had one last thing to say. Not to her, to me. Just as Rachel reached for the podium again, probably to start another performance about healing, Mr. Green stood. He didn't ask permission. He didn't explain. He simply walked to the front of the church and turned toward the congregation. Before we conclude, he said, his voice calm but heavy, Daniel made a final request. Rachel's head snapped toward him. Her face froze. Her mouth parted just slightly. That perfect little O of someone whose plan just cracked. Mr. Green pulled a flash drive from his breast pocket. He asked that this be played publicly. No edits, no interruptions. Gasps echoed. Whispers spread like wildfire. Even the children stilled. Rachel's father stood, half shouting, "This isn't the time." But Mr. Green raised one hand and said, Daniel insisted. He turned to the projector someone had set up earlier for the slideshow, a tame loop of childhood photos, beach trips, bland family memories. And then it changed. Daniel's face appeared, alive, whole. Sitting in what looked like his study, he looked straight into the camera. No smile, no warmth, just truth. "If you're watching this," he said, calm and steady, "I'm gone, and there are things I need people to understand. Truths that were hidden, twisted, or silenced." Every head in the church turned toward the screen, except mine. I couldn't look away from Rachel. "Mom," Daniel continued, "I know you're here. I hope you are." His voice softened, but only for a second. "And I hope you know none of this is easy to say, but it has to be said." My hands gripped the edge of the pew. I didn't breathe. For years, I believed things that weren't true. I believed you'd stopped caring, that you'd forgotten birthdays, that you'd lost interest in the kids. I believed you just faded out. He shook his head slightly, like he was ashamed. I didn't know there were cards, letters, gifts, all tucked away in a box, hidden in the back of a closet, behind old shoes and storage bins. The image on the screen shifted. Daniel, sitting at a table, opening a small cardboard box. One by one, he pulled out envelopes, cards, little packages wrapped in gold foil. "This is what I found after she left town with the kids for a weekend," he said, voice tightening. "I was looking for an old tax file, and I found this instead." He held up one envelope. I knew it instantly, my handwriting. A birthday card for his oldest, tucked with a folded paper crane inside. "She told me you didn't send anything," he said. "Said maybe your memory was slipping. Said we needed to accept that you were fading." A quiet murmur passed through the room. Rachel's mother leaned over to whisper something, but no one was listening. I believed her, Daniel said simply. And I'm sorry for that. His voice remained calm, but his face, it was hard now, focused. I need everyone to know this wasn't a misunderstanding. This wasn't about miscommunication. This was a choice. Made over and over. Rachel backed up a step. She opened her mouth, then shut it again. Daniel stared into the camera, eyes blazing. You didn't abandon me, he said. I abandoned you. Because I didn't question what I was told. I felt something break inside me. And then something else, something older, began to rise. He wasn't done. Not yet. And neither was I. Rachel finally broke. This is fake, she shouted, stepping forward like she could physically stop the screen. He never recorded that. This is a setup. Her father grabbed her arm. Rachel, sit down. But she yanked herself free. No, this is not real. Daniel would never say that. He loved me. Her voice cracked. Her mask slipped. Gasps rose from the pews. I watched the back row. Daniel's co-workers exchanged wide-eyed glances. One woman actually whispered, "Oh my God." Mr. Green didn't even flinch. He stood near the projector, arms folded, watching her unravel with the patience of a man who'd waited for this day. Rachel's voice climbed, shrill now. It's edited. Anyone can stitch together videos. This is manipulated. But the screen didn't pause. Daniel kept speaking, steady, calm, real. I know how this sounds. I know this will hurt some people. But truth matters. And what was done to my mother, what was done in my name, needs to stop. Rachel's mouth fell open. The color drained from her face. She turned on her heel, glaring at Mr. Green. Turn it off. Now. I will not, he said, smooth as stone. Daniel insisted this be played in its entirety. You don't get to silence him. For once, she had no response. She turned to the congregation instead, voice trembling but theatrical. This is a personal attack. He was confused near the end. He was medicated. He didn't know what he was saying. But no one believed her. No one wanted to. They'd seen the calm in Daniel's eyes, the clarity, the deliberate way he spoke. I stayed seated, unmoving, watching, listening, letting the truth settle into the bones of the church. Rachel's mother hissed something under her breath. Her sister tried to stand, then sat back down just as fast when half the room turned to glare. For years, Rachel had painted herself as the perfect wife, the devoted mother, the one who kept the household running, while I, the confused, clinging old woman, tried to worm my way into their lives. But now, in one carefully timed blow, Daniel had taken her mask off, and everyone could see what was underneath: a liar, a manipulator, a woman so desperate for control, she tried to erase the one person who loved him first. She stood alone now, no more pretending, and she knew it. She sat back down, slow and stiff, like the pew had turned to ice. Daniel wasn't done. And from the way she looked at the screen, for the first time in her life, Rachel was afraid. On the screen, Daniel didn't raise his voice. He didn't curse. But somehow, every word landed like a hammer. He pulled a letter from the box. Pale blue, folded neatly. I remember this one, he said. I remember wondering if you forgot my birthday that year. You didn't. He held it up to the camera, unfolded it slowly. I missed you so much that day. He read aloud. I hope 36 is kinder to you. You've always been my kind, brilliant boy. I'm proud of you. Love, Mom. Rachel made a sound, like a choked laugh or maybe a sob. But no one turned toward her this time. They were too busy watching Daniel, watching the truth. He held up a birthday card next, covered in stickers, childish and bright. For Emma, from Grandma. I thought you stopped sending these, he said. I thought you forgot. He looked into the camera. His face was firm now, unflinching. But she didn't forget. Rachel made sure I never saw them. He dropped the card gently on the table. I believed it. I believed the story, that my mom was slipping, that she was becoming difficult, that she didn't care. He picked up another envelope, unopened. I see now she just never had a chance. The screen cut to a photo. A still image from his phone. A dusty box. Stamps. Postmarks. Dates going back over a decade. Letters never delivered. Gifts never opened. My love, sealed away like it was garbage. Daniel's voice didn't tremble. Not this time. She hid these from me. Deliberately. Consistently. To control the narrative. To cut me off from the person who raised me. The one person who would have told me the truth about what my life had become. Rachel's hands were shaking now. She looked around the room, desperate for an ally. But no one moved. Even her father sat stiffly, eyes down. I felt the weight of it all. Years of being called forgetful, unstable, irrelevant, lifted one word at a time. Daniel didn't just uncover the box, he uncovered me, and he gave me back my name. He turned once more to the camera. You didn't deserve what she did to you, Mom. You never did. I felt heat behind my eyes. But I didn't cry, not now. Not when my son had finally seen me. Really seen me. Rachel leaned forward suddenly, mouth open as if to interrupt. But Daniel raised one hand, even through the screen. Let me finish, he said, and the church fell silent again. Daniel stared straight into the lens, eyes clear, voice steady. The room was breathless. Then he said it. Everything goes to Mom. It wasn't loud. It wasn't dramatic. But it was final. The effect hit the church like a tidal wave. Gasps, whispers, a few muffled exclamations. One woman actually dropped her hymnal. Rachel didn't move. For the first time in her life, she looked small. Daniel continued, his tone almost clinical now. I revised my will 6 months ago, after I found the box, after I started seeing things for what they were. He picked up a manila envelope and tapped it once. Mr. Green has the documents. They're notarized, witnessed, and sealed. Rachel's mother muttered, that can't be legal. Mr. Green didn't even look at her. It's airtight. Daniel exhaled, like he'd been holding that breath for years. I thought about splitting it, he said, leaving Rachel the house, the accounts, a portion of the royalties. But every time I tried, I remembered another lie, another story, another manipulation. He paused, so I stopped trying. He looked down for a moment, then back up. To be clear, I'm not doing this out of revenge. I'm doing it because it's the only honest thing left I can do. He leaned forward. My mother loses people and still shows up with casseroles and warm hands. She's the reason I became a writer. She's the reason I ever believed in kindness, in loyalty, in family. He shook his head. And Rachel? You spent years trying to convince me she didn't love me. But it turns out, the only person lying was you. Rachel's lips were moving, but no sound came. Her face, white. Her body, still. Daniel's voice turned flat, precise. To Rachel Madison Grant, I leave a check for $2,000 to be paid in full within 30 days. He held up a book. I recognized it immediately. How to Be Kind, a handbook for the modern sociopath. To go with it, he added. Someone snorted from the back. Laughter bubbled through a few rows before being swallowed by a wave of awkward silence. He didn't smile. He wasn't being funny. He was being clear. I'm sorry to the people this hurts, Daniel finished, but I won't pretend anymore. Mom, if you're watching this, I see you now, and I love you. And just like that, the screen went black. Rachel didn't collapse. She didn't cry. She just sat there, motionless, mouth tight, hands still. For the first time since I'd met her, she had nothing to say. And for the first time in years, I didn't need to say a word either. Daniel had said it all. The silence after the screen went black lasted almost a full minute. It was unbearable and delicious. Rachel looked straight ahead, eyes vacant, like she'd left her body behind. Her hands rested on her lap, perfectly still, except for the trembling. Not dramatic, just a twitch at the knuckles, barely visible. But I saw it, and I knew it was fear. A few pews behind her, someone let out a dry cough, then another murmur. Then, finally, the tide turned. $2,000? A woman whispered. For all that? Came another. He knew exactly what she was. Someone said behind me. Rachel blinked. She stood, turned, slowly. I expected her to scream, to cry, to beg. Instead, she spoke, like she was still in control. This is manipulation, she said, her voice thin and brittle. Daniel was unwell. He wasn't thinking clearly. But her tone had no power anymore. Not after that video. Not after those words. Her father stepped beside her. Rachel, maybe we should just go. Rachel ignored him. She turned to face the crowd. My husband had a condition. He was depressed. You all know that. That video was cruel. Taken out of context. It's a smear campaign. But no one moved. No one defended her. The pity she expected? It wasn't coming. A man from Daniel's publisher stood. You told us his mother had dementia. Rachel whipped her head toward him. That's what he believed. He shook his head. No, that's what you said. I remember the email. You said she couldn't recognize faces anymore. A quiet ripple moved through the church, like a breeze, through tall grass. It wasn't rage. It was worse. It was shame. The thing Rachel had feared most was happening. She wasn't being yelled at. She wasn't being dragged out. She was being seen. As the liar. As the manipulator. As the woman who got caught in her own carefully spun web. And all around her, people leaned away. Not out of cruelty, but clarity. Because now, they knew. One woman stepped forward. A quiet neighbor I'd barely spoken to. She sat beside me and put her hand on mine. I always thought something was wrong. She never let you near the kids. Said you were unstable. She shook her head. I believed her. I'm sorry. I didn't speak. I couldn't. Not because I was afraid, but because my heart was full of something I hadn't felt in years. Vindication. Rachel turned to leave. Her walk was stiff. Not defiant. Mechanical. Like she was being pushed by something heavier than her own body. And as she passed my pew, she didn't look at me. She couldn't. They left the church like ghosts. Rachel, her mother, her Botox sister, all of them. No one followed. No one offered comfort. Outside, the parking lot hummed with awkward conversations and eyes that darted, not away from me, but toward me, curious, apologetic, maybe even ashamed. A few people approached. A neighbor I hadn't seen since Daniel's wedding touched my arm lightly. I always wondered why we didn't see you anymore, she said, voice low. Rachel said you moved away. She said you were in assisted care. Assisted care. I almost laughed. I almost asked her if I looked assisted. Instead, I said no. She just stopped answering the door. The woman flushed and looked down. We believed her. We all did. I didn't blame her. Rachel had been playing the long game, and she'd been very, very good at it. Daniel's old friend from university shook my hand. She told everyone you were dangerous, that you were emotionally unstable. He frowned. Now I feel like a damn fool. She fooled all of us, said another. But she'll pay for it now. Would she? I wasn't sure. Not yet. Rachel always landed on her feet. She was shameless enough to cry, on cue, and cold enough to throw anyone under the bus. She'd blame stress, blame Daniel's medication, blame me if she thought it would work. But that video? She couldn't spin that. That was Daniel. Alive. Uncoached. Deliberate. And he had spoken plainly. Everyone saw it. By the time I reached my car, a dozen people had touched my hand, looked into my eyes with the same quiet realization. We got it wrong. We believed her. And we were wrong. I drove home slowly, taking the back roads, letting the late summer air drift through the window. I thought I'd feel triumphant. I didn't. I felt hollow, heavy, like someone had finally cracked open the rotted shell of the last 10 years, and now I was staring at the mess underneath. My son was gone. Rachel had poisoned his mind for years, but even through all that, he had seen me at the end, and he'd done something about it. I didn't have to scream. I didn't have to fight. He fought for me, and in doing that, he had set something loose. By the time I pulled into my driveway, My phone was buzzing. "Mr. Green." I answered, voice steady. "Yes? There's more," he said. "You'll want to come by the office." My heart kicked up in my chest. "More?" "I'll be there in the morning," I said. I hung up, sat in the car, and whispered, "All right, Daniel, let's see what else you left behind." I walked into Mr. Green's office the next morning expecting paperwork. Instead, I stepped into the first chapter of a new story, one Daniel had only just started telling. Mr. Green stood as I entered. No smile, just that same grim focus he wore at the church. The air was different now, not mournful, legal. He slid a thick folder across the table. Daniel knew things would get messy. That's why he prepared everything. Inside were documents, statements, dates, signatures, receipts with Rachel's name on them, paid from Daniel's accounts, luxury purchases, withdrawals. One for a spa retreat she told everyone was a brand-sponsored wellness event. Another for a payment-marked consultation, sent directly to her sister's husband, who didn't even have a license to consult on anything. She siphoned money out of joint accounts, Mr. Green said, and tried to hide it as caregiving expenses. "For you," I stared at him. "She told banks, financial advisors, even a few of Daniel's clients that she was managing your medical care full-time, claimed you had degenerative memory loss, claimed you were living in a private facility in another state." My jaw locked. "She made me into a ghost." He nodded once. "And Daniel found out. He compiled everything before he passed. Emails, statements, voice memos, even a recorded phone call." I blinked. "He recorded her?" Mr. Green opened a laptop and hit play. Rachel's voice crackled through the speaker, sharp and bored. "Of course I'm using his money. He doesn't even check the statements. He's too busy trying to get sympathy for his dying mother. I'm the one who keeps everything moving. If I didn't clean up after him, he'd probably give that old woman the house out of guilt." Daniel's voice was faint, distant. "You mean my mother?" Rachel laughed. "Oh, please. She's halfway gone already. You're the only one who still thinks she's worth anything." I sat back, hands cold. Mr. Green closed the laptop. "This is enough for a financial misconduct claim. Fraud, possibly elder abuse. If we go to court, it'll get ugly. But she won't win." I looked down at Daniel's handwriting on the last page, a note paper-clipped to the file. "Mom, if you're reading this, I hope it means the truth is out. I didn't protect you like I should have, but I'm going to now. You don't have to stay quiet anymore." For years I'd been silent. For him, for peace, for the sake of appearances. But peace had cost me my dignity, and appearances had left me erased. No more. "I want to press charges," I said, voice low. Mr. Green didn't flinch. "Then let's begin." And just like that, I realized the funeral wasn't the end of the story. It was the opening argument. I didn't expect things to move quickly, but they did. By the end of the second week, Rachel had already been served. The sheriff handed her the envelope in broad daylight, right in front of the cafe she liked to be seen at, the one where she wore sunglasses bigger than her shame and talked loud enough for strangers to overhear her fake little stories. She didn't scream. She didn't faint. She just stood there, frozen, a to-go cup halfway to her lips, while half the town watched her life begin to collapse. I saw the video later. Someone recorded it on their phone. Of course they did. That's the kind of town this is. Rachel always used to say she liked being noticed. Now she was. The charges were serious: financial misconduct, fraudulent misuse of marital funds, falsification of elder care expenses, obstruction of communication between a dependent and a family member. Daniel's recording sealed it. His emails laid it bare. Her own voice, cruel and casual, did the rest. By week 3, her inner circle had evaporated. The same people who used to flock to her parties, to her curated Instagram moments of family bliss, were ghosting her. Her sister went private on social media. Her mother stopped showing up to church. Even her father, the one who once looked down on me like I was dirt under his Ferragamos, gave a tight-lipped statement to the court. I was unaware of the extent of my daughter's actions. Unaware, coward. Her friends, if you could call them that, turned fast. Said they, quote, always felt something was off, that Rachel was controlling, cold, competitive to a fault. They were late, but they weren't wrong. Rachel tried to spin it, of course. She always did. Blamed grief. Blamed Daniel's mental state. She hired a lawyer who wore flashy suits and said words like misunderstood intentions. But the paperwork didn't lie, and neither did the footage. The local news ran a quiet story. Community widow fights back after financial betrayal. They didn't use her name. They didn't have to. Everyone knew. I didn't smile. Not really. But I stood taller. I went to the grocery store and felt people see me. Not the woman who disappeared from family photos. The woman who came back swinging. Mr. Green called the following Monday. She's considering a plea, he said. She won't fight the charges. She just wants to avoid trial. Let her avoid it, I said. Just make sure it's permanent. Because now the world saw what Daniel saw at the end. And once someone sees the truth, they don't unsee it. I sat alone in Daniel's old bedroom. The one Rachel had turned into a storage closet after the first kid was born, boxed up his books, painted over the walls, and called it renovating. It still smelled like him somehow. Faint cologne, ink from his notebooks. The old leather chair I gave him for his 30th birthday was still there, scuffed and sunken. In my hands was the last letter. Mr. Green had found it in Daniel's personal safe, separate from the legal documents. No envelope. Just folded once with my name in his handwriting across the top. It read, "Mom, I wish I could undo everything I let happen. I should have stood up for you. I should have listened earlier. I knew something was wrong. I just didn't want to believe it. She told me you were slipping, and part of me, the tired part, the cowardly part, wanted to let it be true. But you were never gone. I was. I see it now. I saw it too late. But I see you. And I love you. You were always the one person who told me the truth. You still are." I folded it back up, slow and careful, like it might crumble if I breathed too hard. And then I cried. Not the helpless, gutted sobs of the funeral. Not grief in the dark. This was something deeper. A cracking open. Grief with clarity. Grief with eyes open. I cried for the years Rachel stole. For the birthdays spent alone, for the way I doubted myself. I cried for the little boy who used to bring me wildflowers in crumpled fists, who had grown into a man so burdened he forgot where he came from. But I also cried for something else. Relief, because I had proof, not just in court, not just in public, in my hands. My son loved me. He had always loved me. And in the end, he came back to say it. Rachel didn't win. Not really. She took time. She took joy. She turned my name into a warning in her house. But Daniel gave it back. In ink. In video. In truth. I placed the letter in a new box, not hidden behind shoes, but right on my mantle. In plain view. Let anyone who visited my home see it. Let me see it. Because I'd been through hell, and silence, and shame, and I'd come out the other side with my son's words in my hand and my name intact. I didn't want to become someone who lived for revenge. But when I watched Rachel stand in court, chin up, no remorse, still clinging to the idea that she was untouchable, something in me settled. I wasn't here for vengeance. I was here for truth. And truth has consequences. Her lawyer filed a motion for a plea deal, a soft one, no prison, just a fine, community service, and some empty letter of apology she'd never mean. They said the funeral video had already, quote, damaged her life enough. Mr. Green looked at me across the conference table. Do you want to accept it? I didn't even hesitate. No. So we prepared for trial. And while the court calendar turned, I lived, I built. I took Daniel's money Rachel thought she'd buried with him, and I started the Daniel Grant Foundation. Scholarships for young writers, workshops for teens without parents, a small community library in the town square, with a reading nook named the Mother's Corner. Rachel's name was scrubbed from everything. Legally, permanently. She wasn't his widow anymore. She was a defendant. At the trial, the courtroom wasn't packed, but it was full enough. Rachel wore beige, no makeup, a cardigan she thought made her look harmless. It didn't work. The jury heard her voice, clipped from Daniel's own recordings. He's too soft, His mother's halfway in a nursing home anyway. No one listens to her. I'm the one who makes the real decisions. They saw the fake eldercare invoices. The credit card bills in Daniel's name matched to her spa trips, shopping sprees, bribes to keep her sister's husband on the payroll. They read Daniel's will, the unedited one, with his signature, dated weeks before his death. They saw me, heard my testimony, and they believed it. Rachel was convicted on 4 counts: financial fraud, forgery, obstruction, elder abuse, with intent to isolate her sentence, 18 months in county custody, no chance of early release, fines, restitution. The court froze what was left of her personal accounts. The final blow? Custody of the children was stripped, temporary placement with her cousin, who called me after the verdict. She made us lie to the kids, said you were too sick to be around. They cried when I showed them your photos. He paused. Would you come meet them? Rachel didn't cry at sentencing. She stared at the wall. The judge handed down a permanent restraining order. She was never to contact me, never speak publicly in Daniel's name again. His literary estate was mine. His voice and the truth of who he loved was finally protected. She wanted a legacy, and she got one. A public record of what she did, and what I refused to stay silent about. The day the Daniel Grant Foundation opened, the sky was overcast, and still, I felt more light than I had in years. The old bank building had been gutted and restored. High ceilings, open shelves, reading rooms, and a back office that still smelled like fresh wood. Daniel's books lined the entry table, every cover facing outward, like he'd just arranged them himself. His portrait hung above the fireplace, not some stiff, formal thing. Just Daniel laughing, mid-sentence, at a birthday I'd once thrown for him. No pretension, no polish, real. A line stretched outside. Students, parents, local writers, reporters from 2 counties over. Not one person asked about Rachel. She wasn't in the picture anymore, literally. Her name had been removed from every file, every bio, every article ever tied to his career. The publisher complied after the trial. It was part of the settlement. Mr. Green made sure of that. You protected him, I told him that morning as I adjusted the flower arrangement under the portrait. No, he replied, he protected you. I just made sure the law kept up. I read the first scholarship winner's essay aloud that afternoon, a girl named Nia, 15 years old, writing about the first time she realized stories could save you when people couldn't. I nearly choked halfway through, because I remembered Daniel at that age, quiet, lost, writing poems about trees and war and mothers who carried too much. He would have loved her. After the event, parents came up to me. You're giving these kids more than money, one woman said. You're giving them a place to belong. They didn't know how deeply those words landed. For years, I'd been erased from Daniel's life. Now I was the keeper of it. The next day, Rachel's cousin brought the children by. They were cautious, nervous, but I didn't push. I made cocoa, told them stories about their father's childhood, ones they'd never heard, ones Rachel had made sure to bury. By the time they left, Emma had hugged me, twice. Rachel's cousin lingered. She used to say you were bitter, dangerous, not fit to be around them. He shook his head. Now I think she was just afraid they'd see the truth. I smiled. Now they can. Daniel gave me the last word. Not through shouting, not through rage, through witnessing. He let the world see me. And now, I'd spend the rest of my life seeing others, the way I had always hoped to be seen.